overcoming depression and my journey to happiness and self-discovery. I want to share with you my story because this has been arguably the biggest project of my life. The biggest project of my life has been the project of me. And I want to share with you guys like what my journey has looked like in that, because I know like there's times where it feels tough and it feels hard to get out of a rut or a place that you're in, and it feels like that you're confined to that forever. And I can really relate to that. That's where I felt I was in my life when I was in that place. And what I want to share with you is nothing but possibility. This is why I want to share this story of overcoming depression and my journey to happiness and self-discovery, because it's not just a specific story about me. This is a story about you. And I want you to listen to this story from the perspective of, this story is about me. This story is about me. What can I take from it? So I want to give you the context of where this story began. So 10 years ago this year, it's just crazy as I say that, I had a breakdown, and I was in a place in my life where on paper, it looked like I had everything. I had the good job. I was working in advertising. I had a nice girlfriend at the time. I was going on nice holidays with friends, family. I was doing all of this nice stuff, on my way to buying an apartment, had my own car. There was a bunch of stuff. And on paper, I had all of the stuff that, was supposed to make you happy. And I wasn't. I was miserable, to put it politely. And I say that because, I had this moment in front of my girlfriend at the time where I had a breakdown. And it was the first time that I was really admitting to myself and really admitting to someone else that I wasn't happy in life, that I was miserable, that I didn't feel like me was the feeling that I had. It just didn't feel like me. I felt like there was more I could be getting from life. It felt like I'd been dealt a bad hand up until that point. And it was like, I wanna break out of that. So that's kind of where this journey begins. Now, fast forward 10 years, I'm living very happily within myself. I've loved myself like never before. My life is so fulfilling, not because of the things that I have, but because of how I'm being in this life, how I'm seeing it. And that's the key. It's a seeing thing, not a doing thing. And the seeing of that, I want to explore in this episode of you guys today, because for me, it's very easy to get sucked into that. Okay, what's the 5-step plan? What's the 7-step plan? What's the, method? What's the technique? What's the tools? And actually we forget it can be a lot easier than that. It's a seeing thing, because when you change the way you see things, the world around you changes. And that's the most impactful thing. So, on paper now, yeah, I've got my own business. I work as a coach. I've got this podcast. I host retreats. I have one-to-one clients. I host intensives. I still get to go on nice holidays. I'm in a wonderful relationship. Like, everything on paper is amazing. And it's all being created from the relationship that I have with myself on the inside. So in this episode, I really want to dive into it, because it's been a journey of overcoming depression, and a journey to happiness, and a journey to self-discovery. And I want to share 3 key principles with you that have really helped me with this. And again, this isn't tools, this isn't techniques. This is just like stages that I noticed on my journey as it's happened. And in hindsight, I can reflect back on it, because hindsight is always a wonderful tool, right? I can reflect back on it and see, okay, this is that stage, this is that stage, this is that stage. And in the interest of personal development, of growth, of inquiring inwards, of bettering the relationship with yourself, to me, you can compress time if you really understand these 3 principles that I'm going to discuss here. The 3 principles that have helped me in overcoming depression are: number 1, recognizing; number 2, accept; and number 3, growth. And I'm going to break these down individually just to give you some more detail around each of them, but they're essentially the 3 principles. And the first of these 3 stages, principles, whatever you want to call them, the recognizing, is, none of them are more important than the other, but this one is the one that just kicks down the door to go on the journey. So for me, I was living for many years, I think between the ages of like 18 and 25 is roughly the time frame that I've worked out I was depressed for. I can't put a specific time frame on it, because it just felt like that was my life. It just felt normal to be miserable. It just felt normal to be unsatisfied. It just felt normal to be doom and gloom all the time. It just felt like I said, I'd been handed dealt a bad hand, and I was just like, okay, I'm used to that now. So I can't put a specific time frame on it, but from what I've worked out, it's between there. And so that's like 8 years, right? So for those 8 years, that was just how my life looked. It looked like this is what I was living in, and that was just it. And it wasn't until I became aware and I recognized that that's what I was living in that I woke up to the possibility of my life being different. There's a great little small story around this, right? So there's these two fish swimming in the water, and they sort of going about their day. And this older fish comes swimming over to them. He's like, "You're right, chaps. How's your day going?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, great." And he's like, "Oh, fantastic. And how's the water today?" And they're like, "Yeah, great, thank you." And he's like, "All right, well, I'll be off. See you later." One of the younger fish turns to the other one. He goes, "Dude, what the hell's water?" And this is a lovely story, right? Because there's stuff that we're swimming in that we're not aware of because it just looks like it's the norm to us. And to me, that was depression. That was being miserable. That was being doom and gloom. It was my water that I was swimming in it just looked normal to me. So for me to wake up to that and to see that there was another possibility for me in my life, it was a key stage in this. It was a key stage because I had to become aware of it. It's like if you break your arm, as an example, you can't do anything about it unless you are aware that you've broken your arm. And let me give you another funny story. So many years ago, I injured my ankle playing football. I injured my ankle, got a bad tackle. It completely swelled up. And that same day in the afternoon, me and my dad went to an Arsenal game, and we walked probably like, I don't know, a kilometer, maybe more, from where we parked to get to the stadium. It's like a good 35 minute walk. I don't know how long that is in whatever distance, but that's about it. And then we walked back. And I was just like, okay, cool. Like my ankle's hurting. I was hobbling, whatever. The next evening, so that was a Sunday. This is now Monday evening. I was like, my ankle doesn't feel right. It feels a bit like something. It felt like it was hot. It was burning. And I was like, I really want to go to the A&E. So my dad was like, okay, cool. I'll take you tomorrow. So now we're into Tuesday morning. Me and my dad go to A&E. We sit there for ages. And eventually I get called in. They check out my foot. They send me off for an x-ray however many minutes or hours later. Come back in, see the doctor. He's like, yeah, well, you've got a fracture in your ankle. And up until that point, I was just like, okay, my ankle's a bit swollen. I'll put some ice on it. It will go down. It's fine. Until I recognized that there was a fracture in my ankle, I couldn't do the right thing about it, which was to, put it in cast, go and see a specialist. Then I had to, go see a physio about rehab and etc. I would have just left it and the swelling will go down. It's fine. But until I recognized that there was a fracture, I couldn't go about, the next kind of part of the process. And it's the same with your journey of discovering yourself, waking up to what is the water that you're swimming in. If you're not recognizing that, you can't do anything about it. And that's why this is such a fundamental phase, to recognize what's really going on. Where are you holding yourself back? Where do you feel unfulfilled? Where are you doubting yourself? What are you scared of? There's a bunch of things that you can look at in your life to see what's actually going on here. It's all good and well waking up to this stuff and seeing the possibility and recognizing this stuff. What happened on my journey was like, okay, I woke up to it and I was like, okay, cool. Like, what? I want there to be something more, right? And fortunately, my girlfriend who I had the breakdown in front of at the time, her mom was a therapist. So we went and spoke to her mom. She was like, please explain to me what's going on. Like, I want to help where I can. And I didn't know how to put it into words. It was just like, I just know that I don't feel like me. I don't know what's going on. I hadn't fully processed it, but I knew something had happened. So she was like, okay, cool. And she recommended me to go and see a colleague of hers. So I set up a session to go see this therapist. I had like 4 or 5 sessions with her, and it just didn't feel like things were landing for me in the way that I wanted. So I went on this journey of like, okay, well, what else is out there? How else can I, figure this out? And I started reading a lot of books. I started getting into more sort of like classic personal development, as it were. And what I noticed was happening was, although I was starting to look forward in my life, there was a lot of judgment that came up. There was a lot of judgment. And this judgment was frustration, anger, embarrassment, shame, guilt, hatred. I was judging myself with all of those lenses, because it was like, why have I been in this position where in my life where I've been depressed? Why have I been in this position where X has happened? And I was carrying this shame and this judgment around. Now this brings us on to the second stage or phase or principle, whatever you want to call it, which is the accept, right? So we've got recognize, now we're into accept. And the accept then is to be okay with what is and be okay with what has been. That's it in simple terms. And the best way that I can put this is, being forgiving of yourself for not the things that you've done, not the things that have happened, but for the judgments that you have of yourself because of those things. So it wasn't, I didn't need to forgive myself for being depressed. I needed to forgive myself for the judgments I was having about myself because I had been depressed. And those judgments were what were weighing the heaviest on me. So I really needed to learn to deeply accept that this is just what has happened in my life. And I'll give you an example, right? I haven't got him here with me, he's in the other room, but I've got a little fluffy puppy, Teddy, and he's called Harold. So I use Harold as an example in my coaching sessions sometimes around this. If Harold came over to you and he was a live puppy and he just weed on your foot, how are you likely to react to that? You're going to be like, oh, geez, what are you doing, Harold? Like, oh, God's sake. But you're not really going to judge him for it. You're not really going to be like, oh, he's a bad dog, or he doesn't know what he's doing, or he's not trained properly, or, why have you done this? You're not really going to see beyond the innocence of him being a puppy. And because you're seeing the innocence of him being a puppy, you're more likely to forgive him instantly. There's an acceptance of, okay, he's weed on the foot, like, it's not the end of the world, like, it's fine. Okay, and it's that level of forgiveness for yourself that we're looking at, right? One of my great mentors and gurus, Krishnamurti, he says, in one of my favorite quotes of his is, my secret to life is that I don't mind what happens. He doesn't mind what happens. He's in total acceptance of things going the way that he wants and also things not going the way he wants, and anything in those realms or anything in between, in fact. And that deep acceptance of what has been, what is such a freeing experience. And a way that you can look at this is like, what are all of the judgments that you have of yourself when you're in your worst like mind state? There's voices, there's thinking, there's judgment of yourself that comes up. Now for me, I was in that mind state quite a lot, so there was a lot of this judgment coming up. But what you can do if you want to identify some of this stuff is start to look at it, like write it down, notice it, become aware of it, again, recognize it, and learn to be okay with those judgments. See the innocence in your actions and what you're judging yourself for, because the judgment is there because you really want something to be other than what it is or other than what it was. That's the only experience of suffering that we have, is because we see something as a problem because we want it to be different than what it is or what it was. It's the same for journeys. Like my journey of depression was like, I was spent so much time in judgment of myself because I in some ways I wanted it to have been different. Why had I been in this position where I was depressed? I should have been in the prime of my youth, 18 to 25, but I was depressed. It's so important to like see that and to get into that forgiveness. And the forgiveness we're talking about here, it's not like, oh yeah, forgive myself. It's like a feeling, right? Like the same way, like if little Harold the puppy was here, you would forgive him. It's a feeling of forgiveness. It's a release. It's a letting go. It's it's okay. It doesn't matter. There's innocence in those actions of Harold the puppy. There's innocence in my actions. There's innocence in my judgments of myself. That level of forgiveness is what we're talking about. It's a felt experience. And it's radical. It's a radical level of self-forgiveness. The same way the recognizing has to be a radical level of recognition, a radical level of self-awareness, the forgiveness that you want to get into to create the space and the growth is radical as well, you know? So getting into that forgiveness and freeing yourself from those judgments is the most powerful thing you can do yourself to clear out what is in your basement, so to speak, to clear it out so that you can create from fresh. The third phase here of, you know, overcoming depression and my journey to happiness and self-discovery is the growth. So we've got the recognizing, the accepting, and the growth. And the growth is about, okay, I've cleared out these judgments of myself. Now, who is it that I want to be in my life? What do I want my life to look like? What do I want to create my life as? Because if I've cleared out these judgments, I'm free from those limitations that I'm putting on myself. I'm free from that heaviness. I'm free from that weight that I'm carrying around. And I'm free to create myself completely newly, right? Is the best way I can put it. Like, if me 10 years ago was to look at me today, outwardly, it would look very different. But most importantly, inwardly, my inside world would look and feel very different because I've created it as that. And this is what we're talking about. What do you want to create yourself as? And, you know, I started to look, I got towards, so when I was going through this sort of like acceptance phase, right? I was coming up to my 27th birthday, I think it was. And I was starting to look at like, oh, wow, 30's around the corner, right? I was like, oh shit, like it's coming. And one of the things I said to myself was like, when I hit 30, I want to be in the best place I've ever been in my life, spiritually, emotionally, and physically. And that was it. Like those three simple things. That's what I want to create myself as. So I started to look, okay, if I was in the best place in my life, spiritually, physically, and emotionally, what does that look like? It means physically, I'm in really good shape. I'm eating well, I'm training, I'm going to the gym, I'm you know, maybe playing football to keep fit in other aspects of my life, I'm getting my steps in or whatever. So I started to align myself to that. Okay, if I'm going to be in the best shape I could ever be in by the time I hit 30, I better start being someone who treats themselves like they want to be in good shape, right? So I need to eat better quality foods, stop eating the junk food, the burgers, the fizzy drinks, start eating healthier, nutrition-rich foods. Then it was like, okay, physically, I want to be in good shape. Okay, well, let me sign up for a gym. I'd never, ever in my life been signed up to a gym until I was 27, going on 28. True story. And I was like, all right, I want to sign up for the gym. Signed up for the gym, got into working out, found some workout plans, stuck to them, ate well alongside that, rested alongside that. Emotionally, I wanted to be in the best place I've ever been in. What does that look like? That looks like, okay, if I'm emotionally in the best place I've ever been in, I'm in tune with my emotions, I'm okay with all emotions, and I understand how emotions are arising in me. And they're arising in me through thought. I have a thought about something, a feeling comes with it, and now I'm living in the feeling state of that thought that I've had. Okay, that's how I'm creating my experience. Can I be okay with all emotions as they arise? Because they're just a reflection of the thinking that I'm having in that moment. And that's what it would look like. So I started living into it when I felt stressed, when I felt anxious, when I felt angry, when I felt, you know, whatever. It was, okay, I understand this is a transitory state of consciousness. This is a state that's in flux, it's in flow, it's not permanent, it's temporary. It will pass. This too shall pass. I love that. And it was getting into that understanding, and not just getting into the understanding, but living into the understanding that all emotions, all feeling states are temporary, and living into it, allowing myself to feel stressed, not resisting it, allowing myself to feel stressed, allowing myself to feel angry, allowing myself to feel, you know, whatever, lonely, or I don't know, a bunch of stuff that would come up at that time. Allowing myself to feel it, being with the emotion, whilst also knowing that it was temporary. It was freeing. It allowed me so much space internally, mentally, spiritually in my life. It allowed me so much space to just be alive, is the best way to put it. And then the other part was, you know, spiritually, if I'm in the best place that I could be in by the time I hit 30, what's that going to look like? So I started reading a lot more spiritual texts and books. I started getting into, Eckhart Tolle's work, The Power of Now, reading The New Earth. Then I discovered Krishnamurti, and that blew everything else out the water. And I started binging on Krishnamurti's work and what he was talking about, and understanding the totality of existence, the understanding the connected consciousness that we live in, understanding that I am me, but I'm also part of a greater whole. Therefore, I am part of the greater one, the totality of life. And really, again, not just understanding these things on an intellectual level, but understanding these things on a spiritual level, experiencing them on a spiritual level. I started meditating to get more in touch with this. There was a bunch of stuff that I started to kind of do to understand be someone who was in the best place it could be spiritually. And by the time I hit 30, I felt I was in the best place I've ever been in my life. It wasn't until I was just before I hit 30 when I started this podcast. And this podcast was a way for me to share my journey. It was a way for me to hear the stories of other people. It was a way for me to expand my being more. And I'm not saying, look, you have to go and start a podcast, right? But it was me living into the stuff that I was learning. And that was around the time where I started to see, okay, happiness isn't necessarily, and self-discovery isn't necessarily about, the things that you do. It's the way that you are being when you're doing the things. And I spent a lot of time chasing happiness in money, in women, in holidays, in travel, in material things, in drinking, all of that stuff. And I never found it there. But when I started to look inside, that's when this journey of overcoming depression and my journey to happiness and self-discovery really began. And this is what I want you to see is available to you. It's waking up to what is the water that you're swimming in. What's the thing that you're living with that you don't really recognize that you're living with? What can you wake up to in your life? And what's possible for you on the other side of that? And then being with that, accepting, the judgments that are going to come up, accepting the things that you think or believe about yourself for what they are. They're just judgments. That's it. They're not truth. Because more often than not, the people around you in your life that love you aren't going to view you in that same way. So they're just judgments that you have of yourself. Being with those, accepting those, letting go of those. That's where the growth really starts to happen, because the growth isn't, I'm going to grow from the outside and I'm going to keep adding to my life. It's a subtractive process. It's a journey of growth on the inside. The journey of growth on the inside comes from the space that you create within yourself, inside you. And that's what I've seen. And my life is totally different now from where I was 10 years ago to where I am today. It's almost like black and white, that different. Like, genuinely, I can talk about myself 10 years ago and it's almost like I'm talking about a different person. In fact, I was telling someone the story, this story recently, and they were like, wow, man, like, the way you're talking about this stuff, it's like you're not even talking about you. And I was like, because it doesn't even feel like it was me. That's the level of acceptance that I've got over, like, that's just an experience I had in my life at the time, and it's cool. There's no attachment to it, there's no meaning to it, there's no good or bad or better or worse or positive or negative. It's just what it was, and that's it. And I'm cool with that. So I hope that this episode has been helpful for you. And like I said, I would love to know if you've been listening to this episode from the lens of, like, what am I getting from this on a personal level? How does this relate to me? I would love to know what you get from this episode. Be sure to hit me up on Instagram. I am Alex Manzi. Drop me a message. Let me know what you got on a personal level from this episode. And if you like what you've seen in this video, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and be sure to hit all of the follow buttons for way more. And I look forward to seeing you for the next one.